Ever since the top flight of Italian football began to decline in the early to mid-2000s, the Premier League has been the most lucrative football league in the world. Since 2016, the Premier League's total wage budget has been worth more than the overall Serie A and La Liga wage budgets combined. And when you think about some of the salaries at Barcelona, Real Madrid and Juventus, that is a pretty extraordinary statistic. In today's video, I wanted to take a look all the way back to the Premier League's inaugural campaign in 1992-93, when England's top flight first broke away from the Football League, and see who was the best paid player every season. It was a pretty arduous task, largely going off reports from the British newspaper archives, since every time there is a new so-called best paid player, it tends to receive some coverage. Just before I finished, I found an article in Football 365 where they'd basically done the same thing and could have saved me a solid hour or two. Oh well. I'll have to be quick since there are 29 seasons to get through, including the current one, although naturally some players remain the division's highest earner for more than a single season. Equally, some seasons have had multiple highest earners when players have been signed or awarded new contracts, in which case I'll state the highest earner at the end of the season. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like button, it's always appreciated, and if you want to see more videos from yours truly, you can always subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell. Without further ado though, here is reportedly the best paid player in the Premier League every season from 1992 through to 2021. 1992-93, John Barnes, £10,000 a week. Liverpool and Watford legend John Barnes probably played his best football prior to the start of the Premier League era in truth, hitting his peak between 1986 and 1990. When the Premier League was founded in 1992 though, Barnes remained one of the division's biggest attractions. Brilliant on the ball, a joy to watch, and still only 28 when the Premier League was founded, Barnes had become English football's first £10,000 a week player when he joined Liverpool in 1987, and he was apparently still on the same salary in the first few years of the Premier League. £10,000 a week might not seem like crazy money by 2021 standards, but it caused quite the furore within the British press at the time. The average annual wage in the Premier League in 1992-93 was just over £77,000, equivalent to roughly 4 and a bit times the national average. Barnes' salary of £520,000 a year was almost 7 times the Premier League average, and almost 30 times the national average. The Jamaican-born England legend, who thrice made the PFA Team of the Year, remained the Premier League's highest earner in the 1993-94 season, before being tied in top spot for most of the following campaign. 1994-95, Eric Cantona, £18,000 a week. Throughout most of the 1994-95 season, John Barnes and Chris Sutton were the joint highest earners in the Premier League, tied on £10,000 a week following Sutton's move to Blackburn Rovers in July of 1994. However, just before the end of the 1994-95 campaign, Eric Cantona was rewarded with a new contract at Manchester United, reportedly worth a British record £18,000 a week. The contract was particularly controversial because Cantona was awarded it while still serving a long-term ban by the FA for kung fu kicking a Crystal Palace fan, and therefore he was unable to even play for the club. It proved to be Cantona's last contract at Old Trafford, as he retired in 1997 at the age of 30, and he didn't remain the league's highest earner for long. 1995-96, Dennis Bergkamp, £25,000 a week. Dennis Bergkamp's contract upon arriving at Arsenal from Inter Milan in 1995 is a topic that is up for debate, with the reports varying from £19,000 to £25,000 a week. Whichever figure is accurate, the non-Flying Dutchman became the best paid player in the Premier League when he joined the Gunners, and he proved to be worth every penny that Arsenal paid for him over the next 11 years. 1996-97, Fabrizio Ravanelli, £42,000 a week. As you can see, Premier League wages are really beginning to skyrocket during the second half of the 1990s, as increasingly lucrative TV deals were funneled straight into players' pay packets. Fabrizio Ravanelli was one of the primary benefactors of this newfound wealth, joining Middlesbrough in the summer of 1996 in a £7 million transfer from Juventus. It was seen as quite the coup for Borough that they had to make the Italian by far the highest earner in the league in order to secure his signature. 1997-98, Alan Shearer, £34,000 a week. The Premier League's highest earner fell for the first time at the start of the 1997-98 season, which is surprising in some respects since the 1997-98 campaign also saw the steepest single-season increase in the division's overall wage expenditure. It is additionally surprising because the man who replaced Ravanelli as the Premier League's highest earner after the Italian return to Serie A following just a single season at Middlesbrough held the British record transfer fee at the time. Alan Shearer joined Newcastle in 1996, and he was the division's highest earner in both the 1997-98 and 1998-99 campaigns. 1999-2000. Roy Keane, £52,000 a week. Alan Shearer remained the Premier League's highest earner for 2.5 years until he was overtaken by Roy Keane in December 1999. Keane and Manchester United had been locked in a contract dispute for 6 months following the Red Devils' treble win, with Keane reportedly earning £19,000 a week at the time, but demanding an increase up to £40,000. United refused, offering him a take-it-or-leave-it £28,000 a week deal, and Keane left it. And by December, panicked about losing him for nothing, the club offered the Irishman a basic salary of £40,000 a week, which was reportedly really more like £52,000 a week once sign-on fees and loyalty bonuses were accounted for. Keane spent the rest of the 1999-2000 season as the Premier League's highest earner and the entirety of the 2000-01 campaign. It was often reported in 2000, after Middlesbrough signed Alan Boksic, that the Croatian was paid anywhere between £60,000 to £100,000 a week, with £63,000 a week being the most widely reported figure. That would have made him the division's highest earner, but Middlesbrough strongly denied those figures. 2001-02. Roy Keane, £90,000 a week. You might be wondering why I didn't skip past the 2001-02 season, with Roy Keane retaining the crown, but that's because the title of the Premier League's highest earner changed hands 3 times during the 2001-02 campaign. In July 2001, Sol Campbell joined Arsenal from Tottenham, with many claiming he had become the world's first £100,000 a week footballer. Arsene Wenger denied those claims, and other sources put the figure at more like £60,000 a week, which was still enough to see Campbell leapfrog Keane into top spot. Then Juan Sebastian Veron joined Manchester United, setting a new record on a reported £80,000 a week. Veron spent most of the 2001-02 season as the league's highest earner, but his high salary, combined with his struggles to make an impact at Old Trafford, probably forced United's hands in terms of Roy Keane's new contract negotiations. In March 2002, the Irishman agreed a new deal worth a reported £90,000 a week, a figure that made him the league's highest earner for the rest of 2001-02 and all of 2002-03. It is likely that David Beckham would have overtaken him had he agreed a new deal at Old Trafford, but he ended up signing for Real Madrid instead. 2003-04. Hernan Crespo, £94,000 a week. A brilliant centre-forward, Hernan Crespo played his best football for Parma and Lazio, but we still saw glimpses of the Argentine's class during his time at Chelsea. Roman Abramovich arrived at Stamford Bridge in 2003, and Chelsea dominated the spending leagues over the next few years, overtaking Manchester United. Hernan Crespo's supposed £94,000 a week contract made him the division's highest earner for a single season before he returned to Serie A on loan. 2004-05. Frank Lampard, £98,000 a week. Frank Lampard signed a new deal at Chelsea in the summer of 2004 that made him the best paid player on the planet, purely in terms of club contracts, ignoring endorsement deals. He came close to breaking the £100,000 a week barrier with annual earnings of £5.1 million, and he did earn more than £100,000 a week with those commercial earnings taken into account. 2005-06. Steven Gerrard, £100,000 a week. Chelsea might not have had the Premier League's highest earner in 2005-06, but it was partly because of them that Liverpool were forced to pay Steven Gerrard £100,000 a week. Gerrard initially turned down Liverpool's contract offer following the 2005 Champions League final and told the club he wanted to join the Blues. Plenty of drama ensued, but in the end, Gerrard put pen to paper and signed a new 4-year deal at Anfield instead. 2006-07. Andrei Shevchenko, £118,000 a week. Back to Stamford Bridge, I think you can say that by and large most of the Premier League's highest earners over the years have earned their keep, but the same cannot be said of Andrei Shevchenko at Chelsea. The Ukrainian legend and 2004 Ballon d'Or winner was said to have been a long-term target of Roman Abramovich's, but in truth, the deal never really made much sense. Shevchenko cost a British record £30.8 million, he became the Premier League's highest earner, and Chelsea got very little in return. 2007-08. John Terry, £135,000 a week. A Chelsea player overtook a Chelsea player during the summer of 2007, you won't be particularly surprised to discover, as John Terry was handed an enormous wage rise at Stamford Bridge. The Blues legend, who was possibly the world's best centre-back at this time, had previously been earning a reported £67,000 a week in West London. His new deal, variously reported as being worth between £131,000 and £135,000 a week, essentially saw him double his income, becoming the Premier League's all-time highest earner in the process, since exceeded, of course. 2008-09, Robinho, £160,000 a week. Chelsea's financial dominance continued right at the start of the 2008-09 campaign when Frank Lampard signed a new deal worth a reported £140,000 a week to take the title once again, but it would be short-lived. When Sheikh Mansour took over at the City of Manchester Stadium, it became clear that Chelsea would no longer enjoy total hegemony when it came to paying so-called silly money. Man City's deadline day signing of Robinho, who joined the Citizens from Real Madrid, meant that he was apparently offered £160,000 a week to become the regime's marquee signing. He never really lived up to the hype during his time in England, but his signing was more about the message that it sent out than the player himself. 2009-10, Carlos Tevez, £250,000 a week. It is hard to believe, but apparently when Carlos Tevez joined Manchester City in the summer of 2009, he was given a contract worth an eye-watering £250,000 a week. Belief that those were the terms of Tevez's deal stemmed from the fact that his fine of 4 weeks' wages for refusing to come on in a game against Bayern Munich reportedly cost him £1 million, thus making his weekly wage £250,000. That would make Tevez the joint highest earner in terms of club contracts in the world in 2009, tied with Samuel Eto'o and Angie Makachkala. No one has held the title of the Premier League's highest earner for longer than Carlos Tevez, who out-earned every other Premier League player during all 4 of his seasons at the Etihad, taking us all the way up to the 2013-14 season, and showing just how desperate Manchester City were to sign Tevez and get one over their Manchester rivals back in 2009. 2013-14, Wayne Rooney, £300,000 a week. When Carlos Tevez left Manchester City in the summer of 2013 to sign for Juventus, he was replaced as the Premier League's highest earner by his former teammate Yaya Toure for the next 8 months, who reportedly earned £220,000 a week at the time. That meant that the division's highest earner actually fell for only the second time, the first being when Fabrizio Romanelli left Middlesbrough, but there would be a new record before the 2013-14 season was done. Wayne Rooney's previous deal at Old Trafford had been worth a reported £250,000 a week once necessary add-ons were taken into account, but the new 4-year deal that he signed in February 2014 took his basic wage up to £250,000 and meant that he would likely earn more than £300,000 a week, all told, according to multiple reports, including one from the BBC. The Red Devils were keen to show that they could still retain their best players following Alex Ferguson's retirement, and in their desperation to prove that point, they handed Wayne Rooney a deal worth more than £60 million in total. The club legend would remain the Premier League's highest earner for almost as long as Carlos Tevez, spending the rest of the 2013-14 campaign as top dog, all of 2014-15, 2015-16, and 2016-17 seasons way out in front, with his reign only ending upon his return to Everton in the summer of 2017. 2017-18, Alexis Sanchez, £350,000 a week. For the first half of 2017-18, Paul Pogba was the highest earner in the Premier League, having signed a contract supposedly worth £280,000 a week following his record-breaking return to Manchester United. That represented the third, and to date the final occasion, in which the salary of the Premier League's highest earner has fallen, but within 6 months, the ceiling would be smashed once again. In January 2018, with just 6 months left on his contract at Arsenal, Alexis Sanchez signed an eye-watering contract at Manchester United. The terms were so extreme due to Sanchez's relatively modest transfer fee, combined with the fact that there was a bidding war between the two very wealthy Manchester clubs. Manchester United won the battle, but lost the war, since Sanchez did very little at Old Trafford and proved to be a terrible investment for the club. He remained the league's top earner throughout the following season. 2019-20, David De Gea, £375,000 a week. It may or may not interest you to know that between 2014 and 2020, a period of unprecedented failure for Manchester United during the Premier League era at least, the club never ceased to have the highest wage budget or the highest earner within the division. Ed Woodward, take a bow, son. Take a bow. Anyhow, given the size of Alexis Sanchez's contract and the fact that David De Gea had his most disappointing season in the best part of a decade during the 2018-19 campaign, following a pretty dreadful 2018 World Cup, the generosity of the Spaniard's contract is quite remarkable. Make no mistake, De Gea is a fantastic goalkeeper, and he has been a superb servant to Manchester United. And it's easy to see why he was handed a huge pay rise in 2015 amidst interest from Real Madrid. By September 2019 though, who was going to sign De Gea? Real had Courtois, Barca had ter Stegen, and who else could afford him? There's only really PSG, and given De Gea's form, I doubt they'd have bent over backwards to bring him to the club. It seems typical of United's financial recklessness in recent years that they apparently gave De Gea a new deal worth a whopping £375,000 a week, but at least he is playing well again at the moment. £375,000 a week, well, I'll let you be the judge of that one. 2020-21, Gareth Bale, £560,000 a week. The current 2020-21 campaign is a bit of a tricky one since David De Gea remains the highest paid player permanently contracted to a Premier League team, and he remains the player who is paid the most by a Premier League team, but he is no longer the highest earner in the Premier League. That's because Tottenham are only reported to be paying 40% of Gareth Bale's wages throughout the duration of his loan move from Real Madrid, which is still believed to account for roughly £250,000. Bale is believed to be the 5th highest paid player in world football on more than £500,000 a week, before commercial revenue is even taken into account, but he's hardly justified that salary over the last few seasons. Even at 40% of his salary, the Welshman is thus far proven to be a poor investment for Spurs, and he has done vanishingly little at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the halfway stage this season. Just for some context, at the start of this video I mentioned that John Barnes' 1992 salary was almost 7 times the Premier League average and close to 30 times the national average. By comparison, Gareth Bale's salary is over 9 times the Premier League average, but more than 800 times the UK average, which gives you some idea of how salaries have increased within football over the last 30 years, and particularly in the Premier League. So that is it for today's video. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you found it remotely interesting or entertaining. Thank you all as ever for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens, and you can find me on Instagram or Twitter by the username @HITC Sevens.